What if tonight heaven itself were preparing to fight for your family? What if this very moment as you listen, the Archangel of Light were unsheathing his sword to defend your home? This is not a night of chance. This is a night of divine design. There are moments when heaven intervenes, when prayer opens the gates of the invisible realm and the power of God descends to reclaim what darkness has tried to steal. Tonight is one of those moments, a night when St. Michael the Archangel stands at the threshold of your home, ready to cut through every shadow that has lingered too long. Evil does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it enters quietly, through exhaustion, through fear, through arguments that never seem to end, through a heaviness that clings to the walls of the home. These are not coincidences. They are symptoms of a deeper battle. But the God who created the heavens has not left his children defenseless. He has given a captain to his army, a prince among angels, St. Michael, whose sword gleams with divine fire. It is the sword that once cast Satan from heaven, and tonight it stands poised to cast every trace of darkness from your life. As the night unfolds, the prayer you are about to make will not merely be spoken, it will be wielded. Words of faith become weapons of light when they are united with heaven's authority. The moment you pray in the name of Jesus and call upon St. Michael, the battlefield changes. Every fear begins to tremble. Every unseen chain begins to weaken. Every curse that once clung to your home begins to lose its hold. This is not superstition. It is the reality of spiritual warfare, and you are not a spectator. You are the one for whom heaven now fights. In this night of miracles, the Spirit of God moves through St. Michael's sword to deliver your family. It is not the blade of destruction, but of liberation. It cuts away confusion, division, and despair, restoring the divine order that the enemy has tried to distort. When the Archangel raises his sword, he does not do so in anger, but in perfect obedience to the will of God. And when he fights for you, it is not simply to defend your home for one night, but to seal it in light for generations to come. So open your heart, still your thoughts, and prepare to enter the prayer that will summon heaven's warrior. The night around you may seem silent, but in the unseen realm the trumpet has sounded. The armies of God are moving. St. Michael has drawn his sword, and this is your moment to stand beneath its protection. The Lord himself has declared victory. All that remains is for you to claim it in faith, the hidden battle over families. Every day, beneath the surface of ordinary life, a spiritual war is being fought for the soul of every home. It does not always show itself through the obvious. Sometimes it hides behind exhaustion, arguments, or misunderstandings that seem endless. It appears in the tension that turns affection into distance, in the silence that replaces conversation, in the invisible heaviness that settles over the family table. These are not mere emotions. They are the marks of a deeper struggle. For the enemy knows that if he can wound the family, he can weaken the church itself. That is why every attack on peace, unity, and faith within the home is a battlefront of the unseen. Scripture reminds us in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of darkness. That means the argument between husband and wife, the anxiety of a mother for her children, the bitterness between siblings. None of it exists in isolation. Each is a symptom of the same spiritual truth. The family is sacred ground, and sacred ground is always under siege. The devil does not fear buildings or words. He fears homes where prayer is alive, where forgiveness reigns, where faith is stronger than fear. Such homes radiate light that pushes back darkness, and that is why the enemy seeks to divide what God has joined. But the family that prays together does not fight alone. When you call upon St. Michael, the Archangel of divine order and heavenly justice, you are not invoking an image of the past. You are summoning the commander of God's armies in this very moment. He stands at the threshold of your home as the defender of peace. wielding the sword that cuts through deception and fear. Every prayer you speak tonight will echo in that battle. Your faith becomes a shield. Your love becomes a fortress. Your surrender becomes the weapon heaven uses to drive darkness away. Saint Michael's fight is not one of destruction, but of restoration. When he defends a home, he does not only expel evil, he rebuilds what evil has tried to ruin. He reawakens affection between those who stopped speaking, brings patience where there was irritation, and rekindles tenderness where coldness once prevailed. His presence restores the original blessing of family, unity, joy, and the peace that flows from God Himself. If your household has been marked by misunderstanding or weariness, if you have felt that invisible weight that steals the joy from your days, tonight that changes. As you join in this prayer, you are not speaking into the void. You are taking your place in the battle for your home. The angels of light gather around you, and Saint Michael leads them with divine precision. The same voice that once shouted, "Who is like God?" now declares over your family, "This house belongs to the Lord." The hidden battle over your family is about to turn. The darkness that has lingered in silence will be driven away by the light that flows through your faith. Heaven is not far. It is near, waiting for your call. When you invite Saint Michael to fight for your home, heaven's fire will descend not to destroy but to deliver. Tonight the battle belongs to God, and the victory begins within your walls. Saint Michael, the guardian of divine order. Saint Michael is not merely a warrior of fire and judgment, he is the guardian of divine order, the keeper of heaven's harmony. His sword, blazing with celestial light, is not raised in vengeance, but in mercy. Every stroke of that sword restores what has been disfigured by sin, chaos, or confusion. Where the enemy sows disorder, Saint Michael reestablishes alignment with God's will. He is not the Archangel of destruction, but of restoration, the one who ensures that light reigns where darkness once claimed dominion. When Scripture speaks of Saint Michael, it speaks of a warrior who stands for the children of your people in Daniel chapter 12, verse 1. His mission is not abstract, it is profoundly personal. He stands for you, for your children, for your home. His sword is the manifestation of divine justice, cutting through deception and oppression with perfect precision. In the spiritual realm, disorder is not simply confusion. It is rebellion against truth, and every act of rebellion disturbs the peace God designed for His creation. Saint Michael's very presence restores that peace by enforcing heaven's divine law, that everything created must return to its purpose. When he enters a home through prayer, his work begins in silence. He moves first through the mind, dispersing lies the enemy has whispered, lies about worthlessness, failure, hopelessness. Then he passes through the heart, shattering the hardness formed by disappointment and bitterness. Finally, his light fills the entire atmosphere, driving out every shadow that feeds on resentment and fear. The result is not destruction, but serenity. Where there was confusion, there is clarity. Where there was unrest, there is stillness. The order of heaven descends upon the household as Saint Michael takes his rightful place as its protector. Divine order is the structure of peace, and peace is the fragrance of God's presence. When the Archangel restores that order, you will feel it, not through noise or spectacle, but through the quiet rebalancing of the soul. Relationships begin to heal without explanation. Worries lose their weight. The heart begins to breathe freely again. The presence of St. Michael reclaims the ground that darkness once occupied, sealing it in divine authority. This is why the Church has always called upon him not only in moments of danger, but in moments of confusion. The prayer to St. Michael is a declaration of realignment, a request for heaven to set right what the enemy has twisted. When you invoke his name, You are not only asking for protection, you are asking for order, the divine harmony that mirrors heaven itself. As this prayer continues, prepare to witness that restoration in your own life. The same Archangel who commands the hosts of heaven now stands at the gates of your home, sword drawn, not to destroy, but to defend. His mission is clear: to bring your family under the law of divine peace. And when he completes his work, the same cry that once echoed through heaven will resound over your home. Who is like God? None. No shadow, no confusion, no curse can remain where St. Michael reigns in light. The sword of light, symbol of divine authority. The sword of St. Michael is more than a celestial weapon. It is the living symbol of God's authority, forged in the fire of truth and carried in the name of divine justice. It is not the blade of human vengeance, but the radiant expression of divine will. When St. Michael wields it, every strike cuts not through flesh but through falsehood. It separates deception from discernment, darkness from light, illusion from revelation. His sword does not bring destruction, it brings clarity. The clarity that exposes lies and restores the dominion of God over every aspect of your life. This sword is the same power that cast Satan from heaven. When St. Michael raised it, creation itself witnessed that no force of rebellion could endure before divine truth. That sword still moves through the ages, not as a relic of the past, but as a living current of grace. Each time a believer calls upon St. Michael, that same light is unsheathed anew. In prayer it flashes through the unseen world, scattering shadows and silencing the voices of despair. This is the mystery of divine authority. When you pray in faith, the sword moves on your behalf, for St. Michael fights not alone, but under the command of the Almighty. The light of this sword reveals what darkness tries to conceal. It cuts through curses spoken in secret, through envy disguised as concern, through the hidden fears that feed on your peace. Every stroke of its flame is an act of purification. The home becomes a sanctuary once more, the air lighter, the heart calmer, the mind sharper. When you feel confusion lifting, when an unexplainable calm begins to settle after prayer, that is not coincidence. It is the sweep of St. Michael's sword restoring divine balance. To understand the sword is to understand the nature of authority. Authority in heaven is not domination, but service, not force, but order. St. Michael's authority flows from obedience to the one command that governs all of heaven. Who is like God? That is the question his sword answers with every battle. Every cut it makes is a declaration that nothing can stand against the sovereignty of God. The sword is truth in motion, grace made visible, and justice carried out through mercy. When you pray tonight, imagine that sword unsheathed in your home. See its light passing through every room, every heart, every hidden corner where fear once lived. Picture it cutting through memories that still carry pain, through words that once wounded, through burdens you no longer have the strength to carry. The sword of St. Michael is not limited by walls. It moves through spirit and matter alike, illuminating what needs healing and severing what no longer serves God's purpose in your life. In this light, generational curses lose their grip, spiritual oppression dissolves, and hearts hardened by conflict begin to soften. The sword's fire refines rather than consumes. It is the light of purification that prepares your family to live under heaven's peace. When St. Michael raises it, he is not only protecting Mars, he is proclaiming. He proclaims that your home belongs to God, that your children are under divine guardianship, that every dark force must retreat before the brilliance of his truth. This is why we call upon the sword of St. Michael tonight. It is not just to defend, but to deliver, not just to cut away darkness, but to carve a path for grace. When you invoke his sword with faith, you are inviting divine authority to reign where chaos once ruled. The same power that cast down the dragon will now defend your family, sealing your home in radiant peace. the night of miracles, when heaven opens. There are nights when heaven draws near, nights chosen not by chance but by divine mercy. Tonight is such a night. It is not an ordinary evening, but a sacred hour in which the veil between the seen and the unseen grows thin, when prayer carries more power, when the light of God's angels moves freely among those who believe. This is the night when the sword of Saint Michael shines brighter than ever, when the Archangel's mission becomes personal, and heaven's power touches the earth to deliver the faithful from every hidden shadow. Since the dawn of creation, God has set apart moments of divine visitation. Nights of Exodus, nights of revelation, nights of resurrection. Each one begins in darkness and ends in light. And this night follows that same pattern. What begins with weariness, confusion, or fear will end in renewal, freedom, and peace. Saint Michael stands ready to act, not as a distant observer, but as the warrior sent to execute God's command of deliverance over your family. His sword is drawn, and the battle for your home is already underway. Heaven's openings are not marked by thunder or spectacle. They occur when the humble heart surrenders completely, when faith dares to believe that the impossible is already being done. Tonight, the same spirit that moved over the waters in Genesis now moves over your home. As you prepare to pray, heaven's gates stand open, not metaphorically but truly, and angels descend with assignments of healing, restoration, and protection. The Holy Spirit breathes through this moment, and Saint Michael, in obedience to that breath, moves to defend all who call his name. The night of miracles is not born from emotion, it is born from covenant. Every time the faithful unite in prayer under heaven's authority, a line of divine fire is drawn across the earth. The enemy cannot cross it. Every curse that has hovered loses strength. Every burden that has lingered begins to lift. Every door that the enemy has shut begins to open under the light of divine justice. The sword of Saint Michael, aflame with the truth of God, becomes the instrument through which heaven's order is restored. When heaven opens, silence follows. You may not see angels descending, but you will feel the shift, the sudden calm where anxiety once dwelt, the clarity that replaces confusion, the warmth that enters where there was fear. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations that Saint Michael is at work. The night becomes holy ground and your prayer becomes the altar where heaven's miracle is performed. The walls of your home are no longer boundaries but sanctified barriers. No evil can cross them, no curse can remain within them. This is the hour to believe with holy boldness. Heaven is not waiting for perfect words, only for sincere faith. Tonight, every word you speak in prayer will carry the weight of heaven's authority. When you call upon the name of Saint Michael, you are not invoking a symbol, you are activating a reality. Angels respond to faith, and faith is the key that opens heaven's gates. So lift your heart in expectation. The night of miracles has begun. The Archangel's sword gleams over your household, and the Spirit of God hovers over you with power and purpose. You are not merely witnessing divine intervention, you are standing in the middle of it. From this night forward, the story of your family will carry the mark of deliverance, because where heaven opens, no darkness can remain. The invisible chains that bind the home. Many homes appear peaceful from the outside, yet within their walls lie invisible chains, unseen burdens that quietly steal joy, drain energy, and sow division. These chains are not made of metal, yet they are strong enough to bind the heart. They take the form of constant tension between family members, unspoken resentment, cycles of anger that return again and again, fear that clouds hope, or the exhaustion that makes prayer feel impossible. These are not coincidences. They are the spiritual bonds forged by the enemy to suffocate divine harmony within the home. And tonight, Saint Michael's sword descends to break them. Every home is meant to be a dwelling place of peace, a small reflection of heaven on earth. But when sin, pride, or bitterness enter, that peace begins to unravel. Words spoken in anger open spiritual doors. Jealousy and comparison invite unrest. Wounds left unhealed become breeding grounds for darkness. Slowly, the home that was once full of laughter becomes filled with silence, misunderstanding, and distance. The enemy thrives in that silence, whispering lies. You will never be free. Your family will never change. But those are lies born of fear, and fear has no power where St. Michael stands. The invisible chains are often passed quietly from one generation to the next. A grandparent's bitterness becomes a child's anxiety. A parent's fear becomes a son or daughter's self-doubt. The enemy knows how to disguise bondage as normality, convincing the family that what they carry is simply the way things are. But when faith awakens, revelation follows, and revelation exposes what darkness has long tried to hide. When you pray tonight, you are not only asking for comfort, you are commanding liberation. Every unseen weight that has pressed upon your home will be brought into the light of truth. St. Michael's sword does not cut with cruelty. It cuts with mercy. It slices through the cords of resentment, pride, envy, and despair, restoring the original design of divine love. Each swing of that sword releases grace. Each prayer you speak in faith loosens a link in the chain. You may not hear it, but in the spiritual realm the sound of breaking begins. Links snapping, bonds shattering, curses dissolving. The Archangel fights not from afar, but within the very space of your home, declaring it once again as ground that belongs to God. To recognize these chains is already the first step toward freedom. When you name what has weighed on your family, the division, the fear, the fatigue, you rob darkness of its hiding place. When you choose to forgive, to release anger, to pray even when weary, you weaken the enemy's claim over your household. St. Michael meets you in that act of faith, wielding the sword that finishes what your will has begun. This deliverance will not always come through noise or sensation. Sometimes the miracle manifests in quiet transformation, a conversation that finally brings reconciliation, a sense of peace that replaces long-standing tension, or the sudden realization that the heaviness you once carried has disappeared. That is the work of heaven, done not by force but by light. Tonight, every unseen shackle that has held your home captive stands exposed before the fire of St. Michael's sword. The angel who cast the enemy from heaven now stands in your midst, declaring your home under divine protection. Those chains will not survive the dawn. When the night ends, the only thing that will remain is peace, the unshakable peace of a home restored to God's order, guarded by His warrior, sealed by His love. The power of intercession when one person prays for all. It takes only one heart turned toward heaven to change the destiny of an entire family. One soul that believes, one voice that intercedes, one prayer that pierces the veil. That is all heaven needs to move. God has always worked through the intercession of one. When Noah built the ark, his faith preserved his household. When Abraham prayed, his prayer saved entire cities. When Job interceded for his children, the Lord blessed the work of his hands and surrounded his family with protection. You too have been called into that same divine pattern, to stand in the gap between heaven and your home, to be the voice that calls St. Michael into battle on behalf of all those you love. There is a mystery in spiritual authority, that the faith of one can open heaven for many. You may not feel strong, you may not feel holy, but your prayer carries the weight of covenant. When you stand before God and cry out for your family, you are not alone. The angels respond to your words. St. Michael's sword moves at the command of heaven, but heaven listens to the cry of the righteous heart. In that union between divine power and human faith, miracles are born. When a mother prays for her children, the heavens take notice. When a father prays for his household, the foundations of darkness begin to tremble. When a child calls upon St. Michael for a parent who has lost faith, light begins to stir in places once closed to grace. Intercession is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is the act of saying, Lord, even if my family has forgotten you, I will not stop reminding you of them. That cry, spoken in faith, reaches beyond walls, beyond distance, beyond time itself. Saint Michael is the Archangel of obedience, and obedience recognizes authority. When you pray with faith, heaven honors that authority. You are not commanding angels, you are aligning with God's will. Through your intercession, Saint Michael is sent to fight where you cannot. He enters the unseen battles that no human hand can reach. The argument that tore your family apart, the addiction that destroyed peace, the fear that silenced love. These are the places where his sword now strikes. Never underestimate the power of one prayer whispered in sincerity. Every word you speak in faith becomes light in the spiritual realm. Every tear shed in hope becomes a seed that heaven waters. When you lift your family before God, you are surrounding them with invisible fire, the same fire that once encircled the prophet Elisha when he stood before an army and declared that those with him were more than those against him. That fire still burns tonight. Even if your family does not yet pray, your prayer covers them. Even if they do not yet believe, your belief shields them. This is the mercy of God, that the righteousness of one can open heaven's protection for many. The prayer you speak tonight may be the reason peace returns to your home tomorrow. It may be the reason a child is delivered, a heart is healed, or a soul returns to faith. When you call upon Saint Michael, he does not fight only for you. He fights for every soul attached to your love. He moves with precision, breaking curses, restoring unity, and sealing your home with divine protection. This is the sacred duty of the intercessor, to stand between God and your family as a living bridge, knowing that when you call, heaven answers. So do not doubt your voice tonight. You are not praying in vain. You are the one chosen to light the way for those who cannot yet see. Saint Michael's sword moves because your prayer has opened the path, and when heaven counts the victories of this night, it will begin with one heart that refused to stop believing, yours. The sword that divides darkness from light. When Saint Michael raises his sword, he does not swing wildly into the void. Every movement is deliberate, guided by divine precision, cutting exactly where light must separate from darkness. In creation itself, God spoke, "Let there be light," and from that command division was born, the separation of what gives life from what corrupts it. The sword of Saint Michael continues that same divine act. It is not an instrument of cruelty, but of clarity. It divides not people but spirits, not love but illusion. It cuts away everything that masquerades as good but leads to decay. When his sword moves through your life, confusion ends. The soul begins to see with the eyes of truth again. The enemy thrives in confusion. He blurs the lines between right and wrong, convinces hearts that compromise is wisdom, and cloaks despair as realism. That is how he infiltrates homes, whispering that anger is strength, that silence is peace, that surrender is weakness. But Saint Michael's sword slices through those lies with the sharpness of divine revelation. When its light touches the heart, truth stands revealed, and once the truth is known, darkness loses its authority. You cannot be bound by what you can see clearly, and that is why the Archangel's sword is both weapon and lamp. It fights, but it also illuminates. The moment you invite Saint Michael into your home, the battle begins not outside your walls, but within your spirit. The sword enters first into the heart, cutting away pride, resentment, fear, and self-deception. For before a house can be delivered, the soul that inhabits it must be cleansed. Each stroke of that sword is mercy disguised as fire. It burns away illusion until only truth remains, and in truth, the soul finds freedom. When the enemy no longer hides behind confusion, he has already lost the war. This division is not destruction, it is deliverance. The light that separates is the same light that heals. Think of how the surgeon cuts not to wound, but to restore. The sword of St. Michael functions in the same way. It penetrates deeply, removing what poisons the heart and leaves only what can receive grace. That is why deliverance often feels like peace after struggle, like silence after noise, like dawn after a storm. The sword's work is complete when clarity returns, when what once seemed tangled becomes simple, when choices that once brought anxiety now bring calm. That is the peace born of divine separation, and as light is separated from darkness, you begin to recognize what belongs to God. You see relationships with new eyes, discerning which ones lift you toward heaven and which ones drain your soul. You sense which habits nurture faith and which lead you back into chains. This discernment is not human logic. It is the illumination of the Spirit carried through St. Michael's sword. Once that light fills your home, arguments lose their grip, envy cannot survive, and every force of confusion must retreat. The family that lives under this light becomes unshakable. Even when storms arise, peace remains. Even when shadows try to return, the sword stands between them and the threshold. This is the mystery of divine protection, not the absence of battle, but the assurance of victory. Every time you pray, every time you invoke St. Michael's name, you are re-establishing that boundary. Light here, darkness there. This home belongs to God, and nothing unholy may cross that line. So tonight, as you continue in prayer, imagine the sword descending once more, a line of blazing fire drawn through your home. On one side, confusion and unrest. On the other, truth and peace. You already know which side is yours. The sword of St. Michael divides not to destroy, but to defend. Where it strikes, darkness is banished, and light reigns eternal. The signs of deliverance in the family. When St. Michael fights for a home, the transformation often begins quietly. There is no thunder, no spectacle, but subtle, unmistakable signs that heaven has entered the battle. Deliverance rarely announces itself with noise. It reveals itself through peace. You may not even notice it at first, but the spiritual atmosphere begins to change. The air feels lighter, as though the weight pressing upon your family has lifted. The tension that once dominated daily life starts to dissolve, not because every problem has vanished, but because a higher power has taken command of your home. This is how deliverance manifests, not through chaos, but through order restored. One of the first signs is the return of calm, where unrest once lived. Arguments lose their sharpness, misunderstandings fade faster, and forgiveness comes more easily. The constant agitation that once ignited over the smallest things begins to subside. The home that felt restless becomes a place of rest again. That is St. Michael's presence, quiet, steady, firm, re-establishing divine harmony. When the Archangel defends a family, peace is not just a feeling, it becomes a foundation. You may notice that fear begins to lose its hold. The sudden anxiety that used to rise without reason is replaced by a sense of security that cannot be explained. Even at night, the home feels guarded. Children sleep more soundly. The mind that once raced with worry begins to slow, finding stillness in prayer. These are not coincidences. They are the evidence of a home sealed under heaven's authority, protected by the one who once commanded the heavenly armies against the ancient enemy. Another sign is clarity. Where confusion once ruled, be about decisions, relationships, or faith, new understanding begins to take shape. You find yourself speaking words of peace instead of complaint, making choices guided not by fear but by discernment. It is as if a fog has lifted, and you can finally see what truly matters. This is not just psychological change, it is spiritual illumination. The same sword that cuts through darkness also brings light to the mind and wisdom to the heart. Deliverance also reveals itself through joy, not loud or fleeting, but deep and pure. Laughter returns to the home. Conversations that once led to conflict now bring connection. Gratitude replaces resentment. Even the smallest blessings are noticed again. Joy is one of the clearest signs that evil has lost its grip. For joy is the language of heaven, and darkness cannot speak it. You might also notice that prayer begins to flow naturally. The resistance that once made prayer feel difficult or empty fades away. The desire to pray, to bless, to worship awakens anew. This is one of the surest marks of deliverance, because where the Spirit of God dwells, prayer becomes effortless. It becomes the soul's natural breath. St. Michael's work always leads the faithful back to the presence of God. And sometimes, deliverance is seen through external peace, circumstances beginning to align, doors once closed now opening, blessings that seemed delayed suddenly arriving. Yet these are not rewards for effort, but signs of divine order taking root. Heaven does not send random favor, it restores balance. The home that walks in obedience to God's light becomes a magnet for His blessing. Do not look for deliverance in the extraordinary. Look for it in the ordinary moments transformed by grace, a home that feels lighter, a heart that forgives faster, a child that smiles again, a prayer that carries power. These are the silent victories of heaven, the evidence that St. Michael's sword has done its work. When these signs appear, give thanks. Speak aloud your gratitude, for thanksgiving seals what God has done. Deliverance is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of new order. From that moment forward, your home no longer carries the weight of oppression, but the fragrance of peace. Peace guarded by the Archangel of Light, peace that darkness cannot steal again. The prayer that ignites the sword. Every battle in heaven begins with a word, not the word of men, but the word that carries divine authority. In the same way, every act of deliverance on earth begins with prayer, not with fear, not with desperation, but with faith spoken aloud. Prayer is the language that awakens heaven's movement, the command that releases St. Michael's sword. When you pray, you are not merely speaking into the silence. You are giving heaven permission to fight on your behalf. The Archangel does not act without invitation, for God Himself waits for the cooperation of your will. The moment you speak with conviction, your prayer becomes the spark that ignites the fire of divine warfare. The prayer that calls St. Michael is not one of ordinary words. It is a declaration of alignment. Each phrase spoken in faith becomes a strike of the sword. When you say, "Saint Michael, defend us in battle," you are not reciting a formula. You are commanding, through the authority given to every believer, that heaven take its rightful place within your home. This is the moment when the unseen realm responds. The enemy that once whispered lies must fall silent. The heaviness that lingered in your spirit begins to break. You are not alone. The armies of God now move with you. In Scripture, Christ Himself revealed the authority of spoken faith. In Matthew chapter 8, verse 8, the centurion said, "Only say the word, and my servant shall be healed." That is the same faith that moves the sword of St. Michael. The word you speak in prayer is not powerless. It carries the same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. Every syllable that leaves your lips in faith becomes a command that the enemy cannot ignore. The Archangel, obedient to God's justice, moves at the sound of that prayer. When you pray tonight, speak with certainty. Do not ask timidly. Declare with authority. The enemy is not impressed by emotion. He fears conviction. The tone of your voice matters less than the posture of your heart. A whisper in faith is louder in heaven than a shout in doubt. Pray not as one begging for mercy, but as one standing under it. You are not pleading for victory. You are enforcing a victory already won through Christ. The sword of Saint Michael does not wait for permission to strike. It moves where faith commands it. As the prayer rises, imagine it forming light, not abstract or symbolic, but real, visible in the spiritual realm. Each word you speak becomes a flame along the Archangel's sword. Every invocation of God's name sharpens its edge. When you declare, "Let my family be delivered from all evil," heaven answers with a surge of radiance that darkness cannot resist. This is not imagination. This is intercession at work, human lips carrying divine fire. And as the prayer continues, remember this truth. Your words are not fighting alone. The Holy Spirit translates every phrase into perfect alignment with God's will. Even the sigh you cannot articulate becomes a command in the language of heaven. When you call upon Saint Michael, your prayer is joined to his eternal cry. Who is like God? That question, uttered in the heart of battle, is not inquiry, but proclamation. It declares that there is none greater, none stronger, none more faithful than the Lord who commands the hosts of heaven. So pray with that assurance. Let your voice become the echo of heaven's own decree. When your heart says amen, the battle turns. The sword ignites, the shadows scatter, and the authority of God takes hold within your home. This is the power of the prayer that ignites the sword. It transforms words into warfare, faith into fire, and a simple act of trust into a moment when heaven itself moves, the shield of the household. After the sword of Saint Michael has struck and the darkness has been driven out, heaven does not leave your home exposed. Every victory must be sealed, and every deliverance must be guarded. That is when Saint Michael raises his shield, the divine covering of protection that establishes lasting peace over your family. The sword defeats, the shield defends. One cuts through chaos, the other preserves the order God has restored. Under that shield, no curse can return, no fear can take root again, and no shadow can cross the threshold of your home without facing the fire of heaven. This shield is not made of iron or light alone. It is formed from faith itself. Scripture says in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 16, "Take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one." Faith is the material of divine defense. When you believe, you build walls that darkness cannot breach. When you trust, you become untouchable. Saint Michael's shield amplifies that faith, surrounding your home with the impenetrable force of divine truth. It reflects every attack, every attempt of the enemy to re-enter what has been sanctified. You may not see this shield, but you will feel its presence. The home that once carried unrest becomes a place where sleep is peaceful, conversations are gentle, and burdens grow lighter. Even the air feels different, cleaner, clearer, sanctified. That is not imagination. It is the manifestation of spiritual order. The Archangel has stationed guardians around you. Each room, each doorway, each heart within your family stands under divine watch. You are not only protected, you are claimed. This shield also carries memory, not of fear, but of victory. When doubts arise, remember what God has already done. The same sword that broke the chains now rests beside the same shield that holds them back. Faith is not only belief, it is remembrance. The family that remembers God's deliverance cannot be shaken by future storms. Every time you pray together, the shield strengthens. Every time you forgive, it widens. Every time you bless instead of curse, it gleams brighter with the light of heaven. Saint Michael's shield is also a promise. It guarantees that God's protection is not temporary. The same power that surrounded the Israelites in the wilderness now surrounds your home. The same divine hand that guided the saints through persecution now rests over your household. When the Archangel raises his shield, he is declaring before heaven and hell alike that your home belongs to the Almighty. No evil spirit, no curse, no deceitful word can cross that barrier of divine light. The enemy will test the borders. He always does. He will try to stir conflict, to plant doubt, to rekindle old wounds. But the moment he approaches, St. Michael's shield intercepts him. It does not merely block, it repels. Evil flees from light, and your home now burns with it. The protection is constant, but it must be maintained by faith. Keep prayer alive in your household, for prayer is the oil that keeps the shield from growing dim. When you bless your home each day, when you invoke the name of God before sleep, you are polishing the very armor of heaven that guards your life. And when St. Michael stands watch, you can rest. The same Archangel who defends heaven's gates defends your door tonight. His shield stands before you, gleaming with the reflection of God's glory, whispering the unshakable truth. This house is covered by the light of the Most High. Consecration of the family to St. Michael. Now that the battle has been fought and peace has returned, there is a sacred step that seals what heaven has begun, the act of consecration. To consecrate your family to St. Michael is to hand over the keys of your home, your relationships, and your lineage to divine guardianship. It is not merely a ritual, it is a covenant. It declares that your family no longer stands unguarded in a world of confusion and temptation, but is now marked by the light of heaven. From this moment forward, St. Michael will not only fight for you, he will reign as protector within your walls. Consecration is not a distant gesture, it is intimacy with heaven. When you consecrate your family, you invite St. Michael to dwell in your home as a permanent sentinel, to stand at every door and window, to walk unseen through the corridors, to rest beside your children as they sleep, and to cover your marriage and your relationships with the armor of divine purity. His mission becomes personal. Your home becomes his fortress. Every prayer you speak from that moment forward carries the sound of his sword striking in defense of your household. In this consecration, speak not only for yourself but for every heart under your roof. Offer to God the joys and the wounds, the laughter and the tears, the victories and the regrets. Nothing must be withheld. Say to the Lord, all that we are, all that we have, we give to you. Through the intercession of St. Michael, we place our family in your hands. Let our home be holy ground where your spirit dwells and where your angels find rest. This surrender is not loss, it is liberation. To consecrate is to place what you love in the safest hands that exist. St. Michael, the guardian of divine order, receives that offering and sets a seal upon it, a mark that no darkness can erase. The chains that once bound are now replaced by a bond of grace. Through consecration, your family becomes an extension of heaven's kingdom on earth. The walls of your home, invisible to the world, gleam with divine fire. Every meal becomes a moment of thanksgiving. Every conversation becomes an opportunity for blessing. Every act of forgiveness becomes a victory that strengthens the light that fills your home. If conflict arises again, if the enemy tries to return, remember this covenant. Remind yourself, this home is consecrated. It belongs to God. Speak those words with conviction. When you say them, heaven remembers, and St. Michael acts. Consecration is not the end of the battle. It is the declaration that victory is permanent. It transforms a passing miracle into an enduring legacy. Your children will inherit that blessing, and their children after them, for what has been consecrated to heaven cannot be claimed by darkness again. So tonight, lift your voice and pray with faith. Saint Michael the Archangel, guardian of heaven's armies, we consecrate our family to your protection and to the authority of God. Surround our home with your sword of light, shield us from all evil, and lead us always toward divine truth. Let no curse, no envy, no fear take hold of us again. Let the fire of heaven burn in our hearts, and the peace of God rest upon our home. We are yours, under the will of the Almighty, now and forever. Amen. As those words rise, the consecration is sealed. The Archangel's wings unfold over your household. What was once fragile now stands fortified. What was once vulnerable now stands victorious. From this night forward, your family will walk under the banner of Saint Michael, guarded, blessed, and marked by the light that no darkness can extinguish. Prophetic closing, the dawn of peace. The night has passed, but something eternal remains. The battle that began in prayer has reached its divine conclusion, and heaven now stands guard over your home. The sword of Saint Michael has done its work. The invisible chains are broken, the shadows have been driven out, and every corner of your home now breathes light. The silence that surrounds you is not emptiness. It is sacred calm, the kind of peace that follows after victory. Listen closely within your heart and you will sense it, a stillness not born of the world, but of God Himself. This is the dawn of peace, not a fragile peace that fades with time, but the enduring peace of a family reclaimed by grace. In the spiritual realm, this night will be remembered. Where once there was fear, now stands faith. Where there was confusion, now shines clarity. And where there was division, now blooms unity. Saint Michael's sword has not only defended your home, it has realigned it with divine order. What was disjointed is now restored. Every prayer spoken tonight has been received in heaven, and the Archangel's mission, to defend the faithful and cast down darkness, has been fulfilled once more in your life. You may awaken tomorrow and find that the world outside remains the same. Yet within your home everything will have changed. There will be a quiet strength in the air, a light that lingers, unseen yet undeniable. You will notice it in the peace with which you rise, the ease with which forgiveness flows, the tenderness that returns to your relationships. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. The presence of Saint Michael does not depart when the prayer ends. It remains watching, protecting, blessing. The dawn of peace is not a metaphor. It is a spiritual reality unfolding even now. Remember this truth. Peace is not the absence of battle, but the assurance of victory. The enemy may attempt to whisper again, to remind you of past fears or rekindle old wounds, but he will find no entry, for the sword still burns at your threshold. The Archangel stands where you cannot see, yet his vigilance is unbroken. Each time you invoke his name, the flame of divine protection reignites. You live now beneath that banner of light, and no darkness can stand against it. As morning breaks, let gratitude be your first word. Thank God for his mercy, for his patience, for his power that works in silence. Thank Saint Michael for his unwavering obedience, his courage, and his constant defense of those who trust in heaven. Offer that thanksgiving aloud, for gratitude seals what deliverance begins. When you speak words of praise, they rise like incense before the throne of God, affirming that this house, your house, belongs to him. And when the day feels heavy again, when trials return as they always do, remember this night. Remember the sound of the prayer that called heaven to fight for you. Remember the peace that settled afterward like morning dew. These are not memories to comfort you. They are reminders of covenant. You do not walk alone. The Archangel who guarded your home tonight will go before you tomorrow. His sword lights your path, his shield covers your back, and his presence ensures that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. So take this peace and carry it beyond your walls. Let it touch your words, your work, and your encounters with others. Become a bearer of the same light that delivered you, a witness to the truth that God's power still moves through faith and prayer. Because this night was not only for you, it was for every soul your life will touch from this moment forward. Now lift your heart in silent awe and whisper this final truth. The Lord is my refuge, Saint Michael is my defender, and my home stands in the light of heaven. With that declaration, the dawn of peace begins to unfold fully. not just in your family, but in your destiny. For when heaven fights for you, the night always ends in light.